We live in a fast-paced and hectic world where it's easy to feel overwhelmed, stressed, and out of control. How do you manage all the competing pressures without losing sense of yourself? How do you stay focused enough to not only plot a path, but follow it? Welcome to Recovery Road, a show that offers inspiration, insight, and intelligence, as well as success stories from many walks of life that can show you how you can control your own destiny. Our knowledgeable and entertaining hosts and their guests give practical advice that you can use every day on your road to recovery. Now, here are your hosts, Leaha Mattinson and Greg Bird.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's show, Recovery Road. I'm so excited to be here and welcome everyone who's tuning in from all over the world to listen in to just how to create wealth and happiness in this challenging time that we're facing. I'm really delighted once again to welcome my co-host, Greg Bird. Greg, how are you today?
Amazing, actually. And the reason I say it, the kids are home today. And ever since the school year started, I'm like, why do they get all these weird holidays again? They've got an extra long weekend for Halloween. They've got Friday and Monday off. So the little birds are here with me. But again, awesome to have them. And here I am today. And we've got our special guest back, Mr. Ben Fortier. Ben, welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be here. You know, they always give kids 4 days off at Halloween to prepare their costumes and then recover from a sugar crash, Greg.
Well, I tell you, it's going to be quite the rush on Sunday when we go trick-or-treating because I get dressed up too. So anyway, we always like to start the show off with the meme of the day. And I tell you, we got some good ones. And Leaha, ever since we interviewed our good friend Chris Grimes, also from the UK Health Radio Show, he's got this whole thing about during the pandemic, you need some laughter. You need some humor. Laughter is the best medicine. So he's got this hashtag I've been following for meme of the day. And it's hashtag LOL virus. So this one's hilarious. So it's got a picture of Will Ferrell in the background, the great actor. It says, I just read that last year, 4,213,257 people got married. He's got this kind of puzzled look on his face. He says, I don't want to start any trouble here, but shouldn't that be an even number? Maybe. All right. There's another one here from good old Chris Grimes on that same hashtag. It says, my doctor said now that I'm older, I need to install a bar in the shower. So then it's got a picture of a shower, you know, on the ledge, it's got like a bottle of Jack Daniels, a bottle of Maker's Mark. It's got some vodka. And then, you know, since we always do song lyrics on the song of the day, this was a great one out in the world by Tanya Serrano. She says, singing wrong lyrics with confidence is an art, and I'm an artist. That was a good one. And I saved the best for last. I got this meme on my Facebook feed today from Leaha Mattinson, and it says, there is no Wi-Fi in the forest, but I promise you will find a better connection. Leaha, thank you for that one.
Thanks, Greg. Nice way to start off the show, because today we're going to be talking about a wrap up to our 4-part series with Ben and really focusing in on shareholder agreements. So we want to start out with some levity because these are important topics and we need your brain to be functioning at a high level. So have some laughs and then we're going to dig into really, you know, it should be a fun thing to do these agreements, in my opinion. If you're working with a group of people that you really like to work with, that you really have great synergy with, because that's who you should be working with in your business, then why would it be so difficult or hard or crippling to have these shareholder agreement discussions? It should be fun, right? Right?
Oh, that's right. I know every time that I go in for a meeting to talk about shareholders agreements, the clients are like, wow, this is gonna be a blast. Which never happens. I'm kidding. That's not actually.
Oh, so sad. Maybe we could reframe this for everybody. This is your opportunity as a conscious human being to think about shareholder agreements as an opportunity to really do it in a different manner. It doesn't have to be done in a stern sort of solemn banking, you know, your underwear is too tight sort of way. It could actually be done with consciousness and levity and thinking about what's best for everybody in the conversation. And so what we want to focus in on today really is, what are the questions to ask about your shareholder agreement? Gentlemen.
Yeah, so let's start that, you know, and the reason why, and I'll give this example. Just yesterday, I was sitting with a business owner that has literally been in business now longer than I've walked the earth. And is that, maybe it's time I should actually get some things in place for succession planning. And what do I do if something happens, if I forget to wake up tomorrow? So all this show is, a lot of it is how to take action, So Ben, what would be the first question you would ask, not only as an advisor, but a business person? If you're kind of sitting in this, you're listening to this podcast right now, you've got these business partners, where do you start? Let's start there. And I think that would be a good place to kind of launch from.
Sure, that's a great question, Greg. And I guess just as a slight recap for your listeners, what a shareholder agreement is it's a contract between partners of a business to say, if anything happens to this company or to our shareholders or something like that, we'll go through some what we call triggering events here in a bit. But what happens to the shares of this business? So for instance, a very common triggering event would be death. There's 3 shareholders to a company. They're all having fun building and growing and running a company together. And then one of them is hit by a bus. So the next day, the wife or the spouse comes to the other partners and says, hey, so I hate to tell you this, but Johnny passed away yesterday. He was hit by the bus. And the rest of the partners go, okay, well, now we're actually in partnership with you because that spouse has now inherited those shares. If that person was not married, maybe the kids inherited the shares. If they didn't have kids, maybe a random person has inherited the shares and has now gone through to the estate. What happens in that situation? And so in order to avoid that, people would have a shareholders agreement, which is a predetermined contract that would say, hey, if these things occur, then this is how we're going to deal with it. So you get to deal with all of that when everybody is in a good place, sound mind, around the table, and then they can negotiate on behalf of their family or their estate when they're right there doing that. Other triggering events that we've spoken about before are disability. If you become permanently disabled and you can't be a part of the business anymore, how is that buy-sell dealt with? Divorce. One is oftentimes incarceration. So somebody goes to prison. Do you want to have a partner that's in prison for 20 years? Bankruptcy is another one, because obviously the shares would form part of that person's financial situation. And if they're declaring bankruptcy, then the bank's going to wonder what's happening with these shares. All of these things are really a big part of a shareholders agreement. And every company, when you're coming around the table for a shareholders agreement, a lot of the companies don't have an even Steven ownership of shares. So if the 3 of us are partners in a business, maybe Greg owns 51% and Leaha and I split the balance. So I think one of the first things that you have to do when you sit down for a shareholders agreement, and what you're really going to realize when you sit down for a shareholders agreement, is who those people are around the table. You might have started this business with them because of their business acumen, because of their skills. Maybe Greg's a great salesperson. I'm a great numbers person. Leah's a great people's person. And we're like, oh, because of these skills we've got, we should come together and form this business. And maybe we started it and ran it for a little bit. But when you start to sit down and talk about these different potential happenings in the shareholders agreement, you'll find out a lot more about your partners than you knew before, because you would say, well, what happens if you die? What would you want for your family? What happens if you're disabled? What would you want for your family? So it's important to have these discussions earlier than later. I always say to clients, if a bomb's going to go off, better to go off early. So if you find that in a shareholders agreement, you come to an impasse and you're like, wow, this is not going to work. Better you find that out when your company's just in its infancy, as opposed to when it's worth millions of dollars and now you've got a problem on your hands. Mm-hmm. Businesses are very relational. You have to get along with people. You have to get along with your partners in order to have a successful business. And like I said before, money is emotional. So as we know, with emotions and relations, it's not always smooth sailing. So I think one of the first questions you ask when you sit down for a shareholders agreement is, how are decisions made in this company? And that is going to be the basis for how you even run that shareholders agreement. So again, in our hypothetical example, if we say, how are decisions made in this company? And Greg goes, well, I've got 51%, so I make decisions and you guys just come along. If we're not happy with that, now we might be just peachy with it, but if we're not happy with that, that's better we know that now than later. And as we're coming out with shareholders agreement decisions, then at that point, we're not going to be able to decide as a team what's best for that shareholders agreement. So how are decisions made in that company, in this company? That is a massive decision. That'd be the first thing that you would ask.
And I like how you said that. Who needs to be around that table, right? So there's a lot of different businesses that are out there with partnerships. There's some that are arm's length. There's some that involve family. So who really needs to be around that table to hear that conversation? And so many important things you said there is, who's the main decision maker in the company, who's maybe bringing in the revenue, the sales in the company, who's making all the maybe administration work in the company. So Leah, as all those questions come together, what comes to mind for you and what you need to share with the audience here, how to make this happen and take that action?
Well, to your point, Ben, earlier is better. So just sitting down with the first question, you don't have to have maybe all of the questions. Maybe you could just start with one and asking yourself your answer honestly too. It's like, how do I want to be the decision maker in the company? What's my usual style? How do I normally make decisions? And am I content with the way I've normally made decisions in the past, or would I like to change the way I make decisions in this new relationship? So if you're somebody who's acquiesced all the time, just going, what? No, you guys go ahead and make all the decisions, and then and you have some bitterness and resentment about that along the span of your life, you might want to reconsider actually changing the way that you make decisions. And so when it's an opportunity for learning for you. So I guess I would start out with that self-evaluation, going, how is it that I make decisions? What's my most likely way that I'm going to respond and react? What's my track record? What's my history? Is that serving me? If I have somebody that isn't comfortable with making decisions, or somebody that's been explosive in decision making, does that serve this company? How am I going to get training in place to either change that or accept what I do and bring that forward into the conversation? And say, what, guys, when I'm, having conflict with people and they're not doing what they say they're going to do, usually I leave for 3 weeks and I don't talk to anybody. So I give everybody the silent treatment. That's been my past behavior. I go to the mountains and I hunt, and nobody can find me. So that is what, you might want to consider. Does that actually work in your business? And those are executive coaching conversations I've had for sure. It's like, yeah. Did that help your business to actually grow, or did it stagnate? Did it stop it? What do you already know about yourself, and what do you want to change, or what do you know isn't going to change that is going to remain the same? And then watching the behavior of other people, so you can say, how do my partners act when things don't go right? So do they run away? Yep. Do they not talk? Do they not take responsibility for things? So all that stuff. So then you can actually, again, go, I can remember times when, people took all the responsibility and didn't give any responsibility to anybody else. And did I like that? Or do I want to have some responsibility? How do I have those conversations? Am I the type of person that's accountable? If not, then how's that going to work in this whole relationship thing? So that's what I would say. Start with yourself and then look at the other people, because what's coming out of people's mouths is not necessarily how they actually behave. We have the wish of how we behaved and the actual way we behaved. And that's for the same for other people too, is we wish they would behave a certain way, but they don't. And they show us through their behavior what they actually are about. And then you decide, do you want to work with them, or how can you actually get things in place to protect them and protect yourself so that your business can thrive?
Great points. Great points. I cannot tell you the amount of times that we've started a shareholder agreement process with a client, and that's taken years upon years, because it never comes to a close, because people can never reach a decision. And you think to yourself, well, how are you running a company if you can't deal with this? Well, they run the company by kind of sticking to their own little, well, shouldn't say little, but their own areas of the company that that they run and they're not stepping on each other's toes. But that's a recipe for disaster in the future, most likely. If a company can't come up with the right conclusions and solutions to put together a shareholders agreement, then you might have a problem with how decisions are made in that business. And as we know, there's always two conversations that happen. There's the one you have with your business partners around the table, the people who are physically there. Then there's the one you have with your spouse at home after that has happened. Then you come back to the business and maybe things have changed. So there is a number of people that are part of this decision that are not actually sitting around the table. And you're going to find that out too when you're going through this shareholders agreement discussion. You're going to find out, wow, Ben is really influenced. Like, he's one way one day, and then the next day he comes back and he's changed his mind big time. So, he's got a wife and a dog at home, and I'm sure it's not the dog convincing him of these things. So, you can find that out about different business partners pretty quickly when you're doing this too. Again, it's about growing together and then finding out more about your business partners, which is probably something you want to do early in the relationship as opposed to later.
Now, there's a couple more who's too I want to bring to the table here that could influence things the other way or help actually move this along and take action. And Ben, in these conversations, we usually have discussions with a lawyer, the accountant, and to the table. And your firm, you guys have a lot of access to different resources. Do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, we help quarterback a lot of these things. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, so we need to have a lawyer draft the agreement. We always like to have an accountant involved in the agreement as well. We work with an organization called PPI. They're a network of agents across the country, and they have some great resources, tax lawyers, tax accountants on staff that we heavily use as well. So we'll bring them into the conversation. But a client is best served when all their advisors are working together. If every advisor is just working like a cowboy by themselves, not doing anything with anybody else, then you're just going to get a whole piecemeal of things. But when everybody can kind of come together and cohesively work towards the same goal, you're going to get a great thing. If anybody's listening and you're a financial advisor in your country or another, I'm not sure how it works in other countries, then PPI is something called an MGA or managing general agent here in Canada. They offer amazing resources, especially for areas like this. And I'm not sure what other MGAs offer, but can certainly say that they do amazing work for us and have been a huge part of our success as a company. So just a little shameless plug for PPI out there for financial advisors in the country.
Well, big shout out to Glenn Stevens, who I know has done a lot of reviews of these so-called shareholders agreements. And one thing you've got to find is that, and you can maybe speak to some examples of some of the things that are maybe overlooked when some of these things have been drafted once. And when he gives kind of that second opinion and looks at it, and again, he comes in from kind of an unbiased angle. He wants to make sure that that thing is solid, and whether they've named the wrong things in there or the wrong terminology, all that. Some people get caught up in trying to understand that legal mumbo jumbo jargon. Is there any examples where you've seen where you've actually found something, whether working with Glenn or someone else on that team, that a shareholders agreement was kind of structured a little bit wrong or maybe needed a little tweak? Does anything come to mind?
Oh, for sure. Like, there is a couple of situations that I can think of. One time, but a lot of times this is how the insurance potentially works with the agreement. There's so many different ways to skin a cat, if you will. Mm-hmm. One of the situations I ran into, the company owned the insurance on partners. So life insurance is purchased by a corporation. If something happens to one of the shareholders, the life insurance is paid into the corporation, and then that money is used to buy out that partner's estate. However, that was the way the insurance was set up, which is very, very common. I would say that's 90% of the time, if not more. But then as I did a review of the shareholders agreement, the agreement didn't call for that type of setup at all. In fact, it called for a setup where each partner would buy insurance on the other partner, which that's something called a cross purchase. So each partner buys insurance on the other partner. So if that partner dies, then the people that are left, they get the money directly and buy out that partner's estate directly. So if that person would have died and this company thought that everything was just peachy creamy, all good, but if one of them had passed away, then the estate would have just pulled out the agreement and said, hey, this company just came into a lot of money. And the other partners would have been like, yeah, well, that was for the buyout. And then the estate would have said, because you're not dealing with the estate, you're not dealing with the spouse who you think you have a great relationship with, you're probably just dealing with whatever legal firm that estate has hired. The only job of that legal firm is to get as much money for that estate as they possibly can. So they're just going to come to you and say, well, as it turns out, this contract says that you all were supposed to buy insurance, which you didn't do. The companies come into all this money. Let's say they own a third. We own a third of the business. Therefore, we own a third of this money. So we're going to take that. And then with whatever's left, you guys can maybe take that to start the buyout proceeding with us. And we kind of go from there. That's a pretty big one. Another area of buy-sell issues, and I'm not sure actually how it works in other countries, but in Canada, there is a couple of different rules for taxation that apply if you have to buy and sell shares, if something happened to somebody. So if the agreement says, yeah, that person passed away, then immediately a sale is triggered. There is no way around it. That receives a certain tax treatment in Canada. Or if you have something called a put call, which actually gives the company the right to buy them, but they don't have to. And it gives the right for the estate to say, well, the company has to buy them, but they don't have to. So if nobody pulls that trigger, like if the company says, we're not going to buy them, and the company goes, well, we don't want to sell them, then we're just going to stay partners. And everybody goes, yeah, that's fine with us. Then that is called a put call. And that has different tax treatment than the previous example that I gave. Especially when insurance is involved. So you have to really kind of guide those things and make sure that because you've signed this, every shareholder in the company has signed this contract, unanimous shareholders agreement, it's called. And, years can go by and you've signed a contract years ago. A lot has changed. Maybe you changed the structure of the company. You put holding companies in place. You started an equipment company and you have another company for operations and things like that. But you may have done this contract years before. You need to keep this updated. And I typically say to clients, you should be looking at this at once a year, if not maybe once every couple of years, to say, what did we actually agree to here? And are we still all okay with what we agreed to in this contract?
Yeah. That is great advice. And so, Leah, here's the inspiring part to share with the audience. So how do we get them to take these shareholder agreements or whatever and blow the dust off of them, so to speak? What would you say to the audience listening to make that happen? Next step.
Was that question to me? Sorry, or to Ben? To me.
To you, Leah.
Dust it off. Well, what I'm thinking is there a way to structure these so they're not adversarial? Because it seems like there's sort of this adversarial underpinning, and that's maybe why people don't want to do the conversation. To me, it sort of seems like a constitutional conversation. So what's the constitution of your country? And is that based on adversarial stuff, or can it be structured so that it isn't?
I tell you, being proactive actually helps it not be adversarial, in my experience. And you think about this in the absence of an agreement, or maybe the presence of one that's not structured properly. To Ben's example, what are your other options when something happens? You could go to a bank, that's one, and try and get a loan or a line of credit. But what's the bank going to say if you just lost maybe the biggest number one revenue person in your corporation that was bringing in the revenue? The bank's going to work with you? Maybe, maybe not. And at what interest rate? We've got interest rates now currently on the rise and inflation on the rise that's soon to come. You could sell some assets, but Ben, what happens the second you start selling some assets in the company?
Taxes, man.
Yeah, and what's another one is, again, you might want to take it out of revenues if that's the last option. So again, the cost of not taking action here is almost the biggest kind of elephant in the room to address. But it's, to Ben's point, to take the adversarial conversation out of it. Let's all have this when everything's amicable and actually right at the beginning, but also make sure the checks and balances are there even once you're in business now a year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years. Ben, I can probably guarantee you've got ones where you've actually encouraged people, let's get this agreement out. Let's relook at it. Does it make sense? Now your company's grown 10 times. Any other examples you can share that come to mind?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've had clients we're trying to work on a shareholders agreement, and midway through somebody's diagnosed with a deadly illness and was only given a number of months to live. Shareholders agreement not signed yet. So that gives a lot of discomfort to the people that are there. In answer to the adversarial question, one of the things that we do with clients is I'm not sure if this is the right term for it. Leah would probably know better than I, but it's something called triangulate the problem. So to say, okay, we're not talking about a problem that is ours. We're all trying to solve a problem that is up here. So we're not all connected. This is the problem we're all trying to solve. We're trying to think ahead to possibilities, but again, we're not going to put names to that. These are unintended consequences that nobody wants. None of us want. So let's triangulate the problem. We're all trying to solve a problem that's actually not connected to us. The other one is to always keep in mind and remind clients and people around the table, hey, I think we can all agree what's better for the business in the long run. That's going to be better for us. That's going to be better for our families. If, greed ruins things. So greed and opportunism are never great for the long term. Again, you find out a lot about your business partners in those situations as well. Because again, greed and opportunism are the things that just can sneak in like a disease and just kind of rot out your company. But if you can say to everybody and everybody's in agreement, what's best for the company is going to be best for us all. Because if the company is profitable and making great money for the long term, then all of us are going to do very well and have fulfilling and meaningful lives if we're all doing what we're passionate about and this company's doing great. So let's triangulate that problem. It's got nothing to do with none of us. Let's pretend these are somebody else. These are even other shareholders we're talking about. What do you guys think the best thing for these guys to do would be? So that you're just really removing yourself from that situation. But if you find that you're getting really entrenched and you're getting the emotions of it and things like that are really coming into you, because you're just talking about hypotheticals at this point, you're not talking about things that are really happening now. Then again, it's important to say, hey, let's triangulate this so that you're not feeling it so internally. But we're talking about something that's somewhere else.
Yeah, it's a great tool, that triangulation tool and methodology for actually having conversations, really powerful. And that probably does set apart what you do and what other people could consider doing when they're stepping into the conversations. And even with yourself, right? Going hypothetically, if this happened, triangulate that to something external to you, and then it's not so personal, but at least then you are willing to take a look at, well, what would all the consequences be if this happened, if that happened? And it's a good exercise. I just did an interview with a functional neurologist, this Dr. David Hardy, and we were talking about actually tapping out of the parasympathetic system or into the parasympathetic system in order to be able to have conversations. So the tools, besides just talking, you can actually go for a walk, prepare yourself to have a conversation by physically moving your body. So that's a real tool to be able to sit down and actually have conversations. Right now, we're in enormous challenging times because we've got media pressing on us all the time. We're living in Canada, so we've got daylight has vanished. We've got very few hours of daylight, so even people's mood has changed a lot, and that's very much connected to your neurology and your neurological health. So it isn't just a matter of your will or your willpower. Sometimes even the timing of things matters in coming up with these shareholder agreements and signing them. I'm sure you guys can relate to that in the springtime, you're all like, woohoo. And in the summertime, it's even more excited and things are awesome and you got lots of energy. And then as the fall comes along, you're sort of, I don't know. And then winter comes and everyone's ready to hibernate. So the timing, taking advantage of the timing of Mother Nature and really going, when's a good time to do this, and not getting into hibernation mode before you've got your constitution or your shareholders agreements in place. as part of being the best manager of your own island, which is you, right? Your body, your structure, the people who you're interacting with every day. So yeah, that was maybe a bit of a segue, but I do see people struggling with their brain health, with their neurological health, and then that flows out to the rest of everything else they're doing. And again, it's an assessment of your partners, yourself. How healthy am I? Am I healthy? Am I healthy enough to make good decisions? Do I need to call somebody in that can help me to do better decision making? To your beautiful bride, Ben, so it's good to have that little sounding board, because she's the one who actually is going to help you to maintain your balance between work and home. So when people are married and in these partnerships, there is more than just the one person sitting at the table to consider. And that's good, mature conversation. It's sane. And I think this move to sanity is a really wise thing. It's a really, really interesting and good thing to contemplate instead of the next whatever hot thing is on Netflix.
Yeah, right.
Like,
now,
wow.
You bring up a really, really good point, and I'm just gonna ask Ben this question. So the seasonal thing, this is a real thing in this business. I've been in this business now many years, actually most of my working career. There is a direct correlation between the fall time, be it actually October, and here we are in October, where people really start talking about this. There's this big uptick in insurance. They start talking about death and disability and all these things related. Ben, do you find the same thing around this time of year?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've ever correlated it with sunlight, but that makes a ton of sense, because I mean, we can all feel that living where we live. But I've always thought the busiest times of year for me is September, October, November, and February, March, April, May. So I always thought that correlated more to holiday times, but it could correlate to a lot more than holiday times. I mean, it's just kind of a natural seasonal aspects in this business for whatever reason those are.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool little insight for people to manage their own. It's a tool, just like the triangulation tool, the tool of seasonality, and going, when am I best? When am I the most fired up? When am I the most inconsistent and really stink is also really inconsistent and not doing anything I said I was going to do. And don't make false promises, but then go, when am I really dialed in? And how can I actually plan these conversations so that I'm actually operating fully functional and with confidence in these conversations with myself and then externally to other partners. So it's a fun thing.
Yeah, that sounds.
And it's a real thing.
It's a real thing. It is real. It is real.
Absolutely. Your own physical and mental health is the thing that is going to help out your business and your family more than any other aspect in your life. So
yeah. And your shareholders agreements.
Correct.
Well, you know what? There's another aspect to all of this conversation. I need to bring it up. And, it really has been resonating with me is that, a big issue in business is the actual dissolution of a business or like turnover or things like that. As your corporation grows, you have more and more of a chance that maybe an employee or a key person might leave. So Ben, let's talk a little bit about, bringing one of these shareholder agreements in. There's a lot of different solutions and tools and advice you can get from an advisor like you, Ben, that can really help you kind of curb that turnover, kind of keep everybody together. So in your planning, have you seen any ideas using any kind of insurance solutions where you can build up maybe some value in there where that person then maybe less likely to leave an organization? Anything come to mind?
Yes, I don't think we don't typically do that for shareholders. We have done that, a similar type move for key employees. So let me just backtrack a touch. For a lot of companies, you either will have a shareholder agreement if there is multiple shareholders. If you own a company just yourself, then we typically help you put together something called the sustainability plan. And what that is if you died or if you became disabled, what happens to this business? And they might say, oh, well, my spouse takes it over. Well, does your spouse know anything about this company at all? Like if they stepped in, who would they talk to? Where would be their first conversation? Do they know how to run payroll? Do they know how the numbers work? Oftentimes, a lot of these answers are no. So in those situations, we'll say, well, maybe the company should carry a suite of insurance products to protect against these things. One of the things we'll say is, well, let's say Johnny and Kevin are your two top producing employees. And without them, this company would be very difficult to run and the revenues would suffer. Maybe you could navigate one of them leaving if you were here, but if you're not here, would Johnny and Kevin be saying, oh, well, now's the time to take that opportunity that I was offered a couple of months ago, or times to brush up the resume, got to take off. So in your shareholders agreement, in that key man insurance, we call it a suite of products. You might say, well, in the sustainability, your spouse steps in. Maybe there's somebody else that she wants to hire to help run the business, and you know who that person is. So we put that person's name in there, contact information, call this person. They could help run it. Out of the insurance that we purchased, offer Kevin and Johnny, offer them massive bonuses to stay with the company for a period of time. The money is sitting there in the wings for this to happen. That will keep the company solvent. If you're looking to sell the company, tell them you're going to give them bonuses based on sale metrics, so that they can help with this and keep the numbers high, and there's a vested interest for them. Be generous in those times, because those people are going to keep your company going. Mm-hmm. And then when you look at keeping people around during your lifetime and during the working cases of the business, we've often used either whole life products or something called universal life insurance products to basically put money into these policies as a timed release bonus program for the employees, so that at some point in the future, the employee gets access to the cash values or this building value. Maybe they don't get full access to it today. Maybe they wait 5 to 10 years, but it's kind of a locked in bonus program for them that if they make it to certain points in time, then the account is released to them. They can see it. It's a real account. It's really growing. It's really there. It's not a promise in the future that may or may not happen. It's really started, and they can load those in. And we found that to be extremely successful amongst a number of clients. We had one client, as a matter of fact, do that with a lot of their employee base. And when it came to the exit years of those, or when the locked in portions came up, we started staggering them across, let's say 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years being the longest, so that all of their employees wouldn't get a bunch of money and a bonus all in one single year. And maybe if they were going to leave and wanted to wait for that to come up, they wouldn't lose a bunch of people in a single year. But that's worked out extremely well for all of the companies that we've done it with. And that would be one idea that we would use quite significantly.
Golden handshake. I like that. And the key word there,
handshake.
Or the other keyword, like you said, sustainability plan. Really? So let that kind of sink in. Leah, what comes to mind for you? And you've done a lot. You said corporate coaching with big corporations out there. What are some other things that maybe need to be factored into this conversation?
I think that people really underestimate how long it takes to find good people.
Sure.
It's so hard to find people to replace good people. So if you've actually had somebody really good on your team, like Olympic, which is what all employers want to build a really, solid, good team, whatever the role is. So whether that's somebody that's like the head mechanic, the guy who knows the most in the mechanical shop and is the, biggest reason why people come to work. If something happens to him, replacing him is going to be very difficult. And headhunting is really expensive. To pay for headhunters costs a lot. So you've got the time of loss that you need to actually consider of that position. You've got the time of the headhunting, the cost of the headhunting, plus that person needs time to assimilate into the group as well. So that could mean lots of extra training time that you're spending with somebody that you weren't planning on doing that with, because maybe your team really was functioning like a well-oiled machine. And then all of a sudden you've got somebody that's missing, that's a key person. And you go, oh my God. And even sometimes funny that you won't know who that key person is until something happens to them. And then all of a sudden you've got non-performing employees. And you go, well, why are they not working? Especially in large corporations. So why is the production gone down? This so-and-so didn't seem to have too much impact. Well, actually, they brought donuts every day. They're the reason why people came to work. They came to work with a smile on their face. They only earned $8 an hour, but they were like key because people came because of them. And so also knowing the value of the people who you have working for you is a good idea as well. I think that's really important, and understanding it's like at least 3 to 6 months to replace anyone at executive level. It's much longer than that. Sure. Middle management, like there's lots of metrics that you can look at. So when you're actually sitting down to do that sustainability agreement, going, what's really reasonable? How long did it take me to find that person in the first place? And was it just by chance, or is there somebody that I could foster and start to grow as well into key positions? So is there somebody in my family? Is there a succession plan in place? I worked with a $425 million privately owned company that was doing successing from the father to the son. And it's a really long process, sometimes years, so it's when something happens that's sudden, you still have to have all of that training in place, right? So the training for the person who's growing into a new position is astounding. If your wisdom keeper, the guy who does the fireside chats or the girl who does the fireside chats in your company is gone, all of that wisdom is gone with them as well. So I would just, again, encourage people to really sit down and do those sustainability agreements. Really super valuable. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would note that as well.
Go ahead, notes on that.
I took some notes there. Note to self: next time we do a podcast recording, bring donuts. And when I go back to the office, bring donuts. No, some great words of wisdom there, Leanne.
And if they're not Boston cream, Greg, don't even start. Right?
Stay home.
Think about not. Yeah, please.
Exactly. So we've actually we've got to wrap because we're out of time here for this episode. We've got to take it out with a song, but let's just finish with sort of a summary, Ben, of what the biggest takeaways are. 2 or 3 things that people should be really focusing in on these shareholder agreements.
Well, I would say begin your shareholder agreement discussion early. It's better early than later. The main question you should ask to begin is, how are decisions made in this company? And then once your shareholders agreement is put in place, that's going to create a number of action steps, like looking at the financials that surround it, the insurance products that surround it, and make sure that you don't delay in putting those in place or talking to the right advisors to help you put those things in place that match the shareholders agreement the way that it is written. So once you've created a plan, you decide, how are we going to create a plan? We've created a plan, and now we need the things to back this plan up. Our advisors are working together, and so you have the confidence and peace of mind that it's going to work out just like you drew it up.
Beautiful.
Wonderful. Beautifully said. And I love that other keyword you said, the sustainability plan. That's awesome. Well, we always like to end the show with song of the day. I woke up this morning, I said, Alexa, give me a song of some inspiration. And here we go. We got one by Stevie Wonder. We've never picked a Stevie Wonder song, Leah, before. This one's a long one, so I'm glad you gave me a few extra minutes to really dive into the lyrics of this one. So here we go. It's called Positivity by Stevie Wonder. And I encourage all of you to listen to this song. It's really a kind of nice upbeat tune because it's very positive. So here we go. Some people ask me why always on the bright side when there's so much going on down on the other side. It's like I live in a bubble with no trouble and problems don't exist. I chuckle and tell them that ain't the case at all. It goes all the way back to the time when I was very small. Not in mind, but size and age. My papa used to say, you can always look at the negative, but you should always live in the positive. So I try every day to live that way. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Some people
Did I miss the cue?
That was the cue. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Some people live in what was and what could have been, as opposed to living in what is and how much they can, and be the first to complain about nothing in life going their way. The attitude is that I can't do nothing about, and very happy with this just breathing in and out. The ones that when you say, let's go make a difference, they say, nah, that's okay. So I don't waste time on the trip side because I do know the real on the flip side, and I'm crystal clear every day. That's why I say,
yeah.
There we go. When I see the morning and the sun is smiling down upon me, I joy in the blessing that still the ground is not above me. And for the people that I can truly say do love me, I feel positivity because that's what life's meant to be. Positivity, because this day did not have to be. Some ask me why I'm such an optimist when it's more fashionable to be a pessimist. From what's in 75% of what we read, hear, and view, well, I used to have a friend named Minnie Ripperton who used to always say when she was living, like fine wine, I like seeing the glass of life as half full than half empty. I'm saying sometimes life can't be rough, but never to the point of me saying I've had enough. Long as my heart beats, I ain't giving up. That's why I say every day,
Yeah.
When people ask me as an African-American, what do I see for tomorrow in the human plan? Is it possible for all people of the world to coexist? I say unity is only as big as our vision. And if it's narrow, try to expand beyond the horizon. But true leaders must guide us through the ills of society that stands in our way. So if the road is to harmony, be with the call. But if it's about discord, don't take that ride at all. Because world vision, I see, is the one we have for everybody.
Yeah.
When I see the morning and the sun is smiling down upon me, just join the blessing that still the ground is not above me. And for the people that you can truly say do love you, do feel positivity, because that's what life's meant to be. Positivity, and that's the energy the world needs. Positivity, because that's what life means to me. Positivity, because this day did not have to be. Positivity, because that's what life's meant to be. Because the energy the world needs, because that's what life's meant to be. And this day did not have to be, because that's what life means to me. Can I get a yeah?
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Positivity by Stevie Wonder, and now Greg Bird, Ben Fortier, and Leaha Mattinson.
There you go. Stevie Wonder. Poor Stevie. He's probably just like, what in the heck just happened to my song? Sorry about that.
Great lyrics, though.
Nicely done, Greg. Love it. That was a great tune. Great tune. So we've got a couple of minutes, gentlemen. Last words, Greg Bird?
Words of wisdom. You know what? Take action. I've said this time and time again. Take action. Surround yourself with those good people. Make it happen. Ben, over to here. What would you say?
Kind of going back to that. Money is emotional. Relationships matter. So those things have to match up in a business and in life. So there's you have to keep care of those things.
Perfect. So love yourselves, love each other, mind your minds. That's all for us. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you for being a part of our program today. Master Your Life is a presentation of Leaha Mattinson Enterprises, Inc. Join us next time on Master Your Life, helping you to discover the very best of you.